Hello and welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to look at Chapter 3, Section 3.2 of our book. So in today's lesson, we're going to be looking at the conquistadors. The conquistadors, as we will learn, were Spanish explorers and soldiers. So we're going to talk about how they conquered Mexico. They kind of just swept in and took it over from the Aztecs that we learned about last week. And then we'll talk a little bit about why the Spanish had a significant advantage over Native American groups living in Mexico at the time. So our main idea for this section is that the Spanish conquest of the Aztec Empire had a lasting effect on the native populations of Mexico. So after Columbus's voyages, Spain seized control of many islands in the Caribbean in the early 1500s. From there, Spanish explorers continued to look for new lands. In their travels, they heard tales of wealth among the Aztecs and set out to obtain it. Late in 1518, Hernan Cortes landed in Mexico with a force of about 500 soldiers. Cortes was a conquistador, a Spanish soldier and explorer. He was determined to conquer more of the Americas. Cortes quickly realized that the Aztecs were widely hated by other native groups, and that the rumors of the Aztec wealth were true. The Aztec ruler Montezuma welcomed Cortes and his men to Mexico's capital, Tenochtitlan. Within 3 years, however, Cortes had killed Montezuma and captured the city. He ordered the city burned and built a new capital, Mexico City, on its ashes. By 1525, Spanish control reached as far south as Central America. So Cortes was a bold, skillful leader. The Spanish had guns, swords, and armor, which were all superior to the Aztecs' weapons. The Spanish also used horses and dogs in battle. The Aztecs were slow to act at first because they believed that Cortes was a god. When their leader, Montezuma, was killed by Cortes in 1520, the Aztec armies fell apart in confusion because they didn't know who was supposed to lead them. They didn't have a very clear chain of command. And Montezuma was so revered by his subjects that they didn't know what to do. Native Mexican people provided the Spanish with an even further advantage. Many native tribes hated the Aztecs who had conquered them, and Cortes was able to convince thousands of warriors and native tribes to fight along with the Spanish troops. As an example, a native woman called Malinche served as an interpreter and a guide for the Spanish. Her knowledge of native languages was incredibly important for successful interactions between the Spanish and other native tribes. One of the biggest reasons for the Aztec defeat was an unexpected consequence. The Spanish unknowingly brought over diseases that the natives had never encountered and could not resist. So they didn't have the antibodies or any of the natural immunities because they had never encountered these diseases before. So illnesses like measles and the smallpox became epidemics. An epidemic is the outbreak of a disease that spreads widely. So these diseases infected and killed huge numbers of the native population. The deaths weakened the Aztecs' ability to resist in the Spanish conquest. So from their base in Mexico, the Spanish armies conquered all of Central America. They went on to conquer most of South America, building their own vast empire. European diseases continued to wipe out native populations for many years following their conquest of Central America. The natives who escaped and escaped the epidemics of diseases spreading through and survived those diseases were then enslaved by the Spanish, and they were also forced to work on farms and in silver mines. So using slave labor, the Spanish mined vast wealth from the large amounts of silver in the mountains of northern Mexico. Spain's success and sudden wealth had another effect. It drove Spain's rivals in Europe to send explorers to the Americas in search of wealth. These European powers also created new empires there. All right, so to wrap up this section, a couple things to remember. The Spanish, led by Hernan Cortes, conquered the Aztecs by 1525. And then from their hold in what is now Mexico City, the Spanish went on to conquer most of Mexico and Central America. This in turn led to some pretty devastating consequences for the native populations that lived there. All right, thank you guys for listening. Go ahead and check back in campus to see what your next job is. I'll see you guys later. Bye.